Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we discuss TV shows here. The name of the show is Babylon 5. Oh, I forgot to do the year. Oh, damn it, I messed up. Oh well, next episode. I'll get it right next time.
We don't do two takes.
No, never. No, wouldn't dream of it. So yeah, obviously we're doing episode 10 of season 1. It's called Believers, so full spoilers for the episode as always. Into double digits, exciting. The premise of this episode, we're focusing mainly on the Doctor here, Dr. Franklin, as he's presented with a very interesting moral and ethical decision that he has to make, which is that an alien family, their son is dying, but he's dying from something that's actually very easily curable. It's a very simple procedure. The problem is that the alien parents, their culture, believes that cutting into their own race is akin to cutting into an animal, and they believe that their spirit will escape if they ever choose to cut into themselves, and that includes surgery. So their religious beliefs are in the way of him saving the boy's life, and they're willing to let him die. They would rather let him die than let the surgery happen. And Franklin kind of has to really kind of fight against this, and this becomes the premise of the episode. And it eventually expands out to Sinclair and others get involved, and it becomes more of a station-wide issue. But it starts off very much just the doctor-parent dispute, and then goes up from there as he basically takes up the chain of command because he wants Sinclair to force it at a certain point. But we'll get into all that. But that's the gist of the episode. How did you make of this one? Did you like Believers?
Yes, I did. I think the premise is very good. I think it's a nice showcase of the Doctor and his beliefs. We get very brief encounters with the other ambassadors, and their moments are still tell us a lot about who they are.
Yes.
I think I've seen a House episode that's basically the same thing, and that was also very good. I have questions like,
but aliens,
what if they
killer.
get like a paper cut? Is their soul gone and they have to... I don't know.
Maybe that's okay because it wasn't voluntary.
So it's not, well, they keep using like the metaphor of the egg. So like there's an egg, that thing that the kid is taking care of. They come from the great egg. So like if the eggshell cracks, then that releases what's inside, So their body is an egg.
I don't know. Maybe they've got special soft edge paper they use on their... I don't know.
Paper is outlawed. No sharp edges on their planet.
Yeah, but no one's ever accidentally cut themselves whilst chopping wood or something like that. Maybe they don't use wood. I don't know. Anyway, yes, I'm sure there's something here. My guess would be that it's because it's not voluntary. If it's like a knife wound from battle or something, it's okay because it was not self-inflicted. I'm going to basically akin it to like Christianity's view on suicide. The idea that if someone's killed in a war, like it's still like a just like. It's not like suicide. They say, oh well, you're going to go to hell because you committed suicide, kind of thing. Like, I think that's what the correlation more or less is, with the idea of openly letting themselves be cut. Now I liked it as well. I occasionally the execution's a little bit weird. I think the subplot in this episode is oddly it's just fine, but it feels the most tacked on as any like B plot ever has in the show. I think it's Ivanova and this little raider plot.
I agree.
Everything else feels like it feeds back into the main plot, but that one just feels like this little side thing.
Plus, it just sort of ends like, that part's also concluded, I guess. We don't really get to see how it ends.
Yeah, it's
just that things went well.
It's basically there's a ship that's stranded in a territory that's like known for raiders, so they have to send out an
Space
escort. We get a fun little scene of Ivanova being like sassy because Sinclair's like, get Garibaldi to go out because there has to be like a senior commander, in person to supervise, and she gets like really frustrated and basically makes it clear that she's felt cooped up being next to a computer like on the command deck for months and wants to go and do something herself. And Sinclair, instead of reading her the riot act because she's being insubordinate, quite frankly, is nice and says like, I've got a suggestion. Why don't you go and supervise this thing? Like, if you insist, Commander.
I do like the scene because I feel her. I understand her. Like she's she's just as capable, and Sinclair can choose anybody. Why choose Garibaldi every single time when she could do it as well? I've had jobs that are like 80% male and been told, Tara, go get the tools instead of Tara, go fix the problem. And it's frustrating,
Yeah.
And I kind of, was reminded of that because she said, maybe I'll just stick back here and knit. I don't know, knit a sweater or something. And yeah, like maybe Sinclair is just being a little bit sexist without him even realizing it. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's so much that he's being sexist. It's just more that her job is to be stationed here, and he's just never considered the idea that she might want to have a change of pace occasionally, and not just be stuck here the whole time.
okay, but I think Ivanova's accusing him of that by saying maybe I'll just stay back and knit.
No, you're probably. I mean, no. This is why I'm glad to have your perspective. But Jane Connor would bring up this point. No, he'd be sitting there eating his own toenails or something. I don't know what he'd be doing.
Connor's pretty woke. Eating toenails. God, that's disgusting.
I agree. Connor's disgusting. Woke, but disgusting. Yes. I love the idea that someone found this channel and has only found it for Babylon 5 reviews and only watches us doing Babylon 5 and has no idea who Connor is.
Connor is, I guess, our troll who eats toenails.
Yes, he's a troll. Yes. So, but yeah, so she goes out with some ships. She basically predicts that the Raiders have got a plan and starts it by a bit of preemptive risk taking, and that's it. That's the whole thing. I think it's because there's not really enough time given to it to actually give it its own little like arc or plot that goes up and down. It's just kind of like to the point where I'm struggling to actually tell you the details of what happened in it because it's just so like basic and forgettable. It's just nice that she gets to go on a little adventure, right?
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. She gets to go fly around and save people and get into trouble, get a little too cocky, and then I guess everything worked out at the end.
What I like about this episode, and what I like about how they handle Franklin, is that I think Franklin clearly does some, like, makes the wrong choice in terms of what he should do at various points ethically, even though I think we always kind of agree why he's doing the thing he's doing. Like, we always understand why he's making the choice he's making, and we always essentially agree with him that, no, like, these stupid parents are going to get their kid killed. Of course they should operate. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it in a real-world context, imagine if this was just, like, on Earth, and we had, like, a couple from a different culture were in, like, a Western country, for example. And I'm just saying Western because that's where, we're both in Western countries. And this kind of cropped up, like, essentially what would happen is ultimately, like, it would be taken out of their hands because it would be seen as endangering the child, and if the parents couldn't live with that and whatever, like, then essentially the kid would end up either with new guardians or in foster care or something. Like, it would be taken away from them. The situation would be taken away from them out of their hands, not the kid. Obviously the kid's a kid, but here it's just it's this different way of looking at it.
The house episode is very much like a lot like this, and it's just that the people who are so religious, they're in some like cult-ish brand of religion. I mean, whatever you want to make of that, but it was more like well, God has chosen him to die, so we don't want you to interfere with God's chosen path. And it was still very much the same thing, like, well, technically they're the legal guardians. If we don't have permission to do this, then we can't. So maybe that could happen in a modern day setting. I'm not really sure.
I would question how accurate that house episode is based on what you just told me, to be honest.
I'm trying to like piece it from memory.
Yeah.
I did a house binge watch like maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Not that I'm suggesting, because that's the thing, Babylon 5 is like super fictional and that it's in this setting. I'm going to get on a limb here and say that House wasn't always accurate, not just on a scientific level, but also in like every level.
But it was on TV.
I'm going to say that House was probably vastly
Well, yeah, I
inaccurate
mean,
often.
just about every episode ends with me going, this guy should probably have his medical license taken away.
Yes.
But it's good drama. Damn good drama.
Yeah, so I obviously, it's given what I said by comparing it to say if this happened on Earth today, here's kind of what would probably happen in a lot of countries. Of course, the argument is that they're not in Earth here. They're in what's supposed to be a neutral meeting point where every culture is going to be respected equally, right? That's kind of the point of Babylon 5. So it's not that, like, I'm pretty sure if this couple were on Earth with their child, you know, maybe they wouldn't be able to, like, you know, when Franklin says, hey, like, take this out of their hands because they're making the wrong choice, EarthGov or whoever would probably, you know what, or Child Services at the very least would step in and say, yes, the doctor's going to do this because you're being, like, horrible parents right now, as far as we're concerned, and you're in our world, so you're going to obey our rules. It's that simple. But this is not what this is. This is Babylon 5. This is supposed to be a station, and I love that this episode addresses multiple times that Sinclair already pulled this shit, and it actually gets really on the nose at one point, because the sequence where the couple, when they're trying to stop Sinclair, because when Sinclair's got the choice of, like, either letting the operation happen or not, the couple go around all the ambassadors, because their race doesn't have an ambassador on board, so they go around all the ambassadors, and they go to Jakar, and Jakar's whole thing is, well, there's no benefit for the Narn, so go away, leave me alone. Londo's like, well, there's a lot of resources to help you, paperwork, all these kind of things. And,
You're just going to have to pay lots of money.
Yeah. Delenne's a bit more kind of ethical about it, saying, well, no, because if I pick this side, then I'm going against the humans, and she gives a bit more than that. But it's Kosh that's really interesting, because they actually say, imagine if it was your child, Ambassador Kosh, or even you yourself, and someone decided to operate on you against your wishes. And I love that it brought it up. Although, Kosh has a very good line here, actually, because he basically says...
Something about a pebble.
I remember the line.
The avalanche.
The avalanche has already started. It's too late for the pebbles to vote. Which I think he's more speaking on the grand terms of the whole show and the direction that everything's going in. But again, Kosh hitting out with a really ominous, like,
yeah, a riddle. He only speaks in riddles now.
Bad things are happening. But I appreciate that, and I appreciate that when Franklin argues with Sinclair after Sinclair's made the choice to not let the surgery go through, and Sinclair, for maybe the first person in the whole episode who does this, because there's a lot of debating with Franklin and the parents, but Sinclair actually, after talking to the parents and talking to Franklin, goes and talks to the kid and asks what the kid thinks, and that's what the kid wants, and the kid says that, yeah, I want to live, but I believe in what my parents believe. I believe that my spirit will escape, and this is why. And Sinclair just says, okay, tell me about it. Okay. And Sinclair, he tries to convince him a little bit by saying, look, I've had surgery and this is how it worked and blah, blah. And the kid's like, yeah, but you're not from the egg, which is, you know, their religion.
You're not the chosen one,
yeah.
We're chosen people.
And he just says, okay, tell me about it. And it kind of fades away from there. And Sinclair makes his choice. And I'm sure there's a lot of factors that go into his decision, but I do kind of like the idea that the sort of the tipping point was probably the child himself. Like when Sinclair went to the kid and the kid says, I believe this too.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay. I mean, okay, yes. Typically kids can't make these choices for themselves. You know, you have to have someone who, like a legal guardian who's over a certain age, but I think there's still some value when there's the adults can't decide something. Like, what does the kid think? Is it at least a worldly viewpoint to take into consideration, if not something that should be the outright deciding factor?
Yeah, it's odd because I found myself on the side of Sinclair during this episode when I really shouldn't, because, for one, all religions are stupid and dangerous.
Which is actually something I respect about this episode, is that I agree with that sentiment. I am an atheist, and I do think ultimately religions are mostly pretty stupid. And it's, you know, I understand the sentiment of like respecting someone's beliefs, but ultimately I think they're kind of stupid. So whenever it comes into like a decision making part of process, like, you know, that's why we always talk about the separation.
Well, like, on Earth, I would take myself out of that.
Yeah, we always talk about the separation of church and state, because if you use religion to make serious decisions, like, I can't be a party to that. I'm going to argue against you using that to make a choice, because I don't think that's a, you know, logical or intelligent thing to do. You know, praise Spock, something. But that's But this is what I think this episode does so well, is that despite the fact that I am on Franklin's side and that I'm later on Sinclair's side, although admittedly with a bit more nuance because he's been more diplomatic about the whole thing, is that ultimately I disagree with what the parents are saying. I disagree that this is like they should let the kid die. This is a simple procedure. It's going to save him.
Yeah.
However, throughout the episode, Franklin constantly says things to them and acts in a certain way that makes us go, look, as much as I agree with Franklin and what he's trying to do, he is going about this the wrong way, and the way he's kind of disregarding these people isn't quite working. And I always feel like I get the two sides of this, even though I completely fundamentally disagree with the other side. Like, I think Franklin always comes across, well, not always, but he constantly does things where he'll take it out of their hands. Because ultimately what he does is that he just does the operation anyway. He goes against orders and just does it behind their back without their say. And it's like, you know what, I fundamentally understand why he's doing this, and I even kind of agree with it in a bizarre way, that like, take it out of their hands. But there is an arrogance to it. There's an arrogance saying, I know better than they do. And it, I think there's some layers there that makes it a bit more interesting than just the initial conflict.
Right. Yeah. So, like, what I was gonna say was
sorry
was that ultimately I end up on Sinclair's side, which is odd because I do think that if you step yourself out of the situation and you just look at it, one of them involves a child dying and the other one involves a child living, it seems pretty obvious which one should be the right choice. But, they're in uncharted waters over here. They're in this area of space where they're supposed to be a place where other cultures trust humans and to not interfere with them, with their culture. So I do think Sinclair was right to let the child die, which is an awful thing to say. But I also don't hate Franklin for his decisions.
Of course, yeah.
Even though I do think he acts very arrogant.
He acts like he knows best.
Like inappropriately arrogant at times.
Yeah, because he acts like he knows best, and like he's kind of arrogant because science is right and you're wrong. And even though I fundamentally agree with him, the way he does it and disregards what they believe is a problem, and it feels wrong to me, despite what I believe, which is very much everything that he believes in. So, I mean, not everything, but for the broad strokes of it, absolutely. So, now you're right. Like, it should be simple, but. And I kind of love at the end, Sinclair's like, you know what, if you hadn't like tried to force me to like make a choice, you could have done this and it wouldn't have been against orders.
Right.
And it's almost like Sinclair would have rathered that. Like, yeah, if you'd just done this without bringing it to me first, I wouldn't have to like treat it the way I did. I wouldn't have to make this something you had to disobey. But and Sinclair's livid with him. See, when he finds out, he's like, I should ask for your resignation right now. And Franklin's like, oh, you can have it. I'll sign it right now, you prick. That's his response, essentially. Not in those words, of course, but I guess he'd. Yeah.
And Franklin has support from his medical staff. In the first, 20% of the episode, Franklin's telling her not to interfere with culture and to let them try to find another way. And then she's telling him, why don't you just do it anyway? This kid's going to die. We don't have another way. This is the only way to save him.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that he's actually kind of, not a hypocrite, but he actually tries to go about it with a bit more of a sensitive touch at first, where he tries to, soften them up to the idea by giving them this, fake alternative for a while. And he's thinking, okay, they're going to get desperate enough that they're going to eventually sort of agree to let us do the surgery. This is what we should have done the whole time. But it never happens. They never allow it, and they never want to, and they end up fighting for it by going to the other ambassadors, by going to Sinclair, and really making it a political moment rather than just a choice that's personal that it should be between a family and a doctor.
Yeah, and Sinclair basically tells him next time it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission.
Yeah, because in that way he's not representing EarthGov as he makes the choice to perform the surgery, but because he's disobeying, or because he has to make Sinclair make the choice. If he does make the choice to go through with it and let Franklin go through with the surgery,
he's disobeying an order.
Yeah. Or more to the point though, if Sinclair did agree for the surgery to happen, that would mean that Earth once again, the humans are once again saying, we can overrule anything that you people bring to the station. We can outlaw or we can overrule any of your customs, any of your laws or rules or anything. We get the final say on everything. And That's what he doesn't
That's not
want.
really what.
Yeah.
That's not what Babylon 5 is supposed to be.
Yeah, and he's already kind of done it with Kosh, and again, as much as you kind of point to that, and Franklin does. To be fair, when you consider the circumstances, Sinclair did that because it was going to basically break out into like a war with the Vorlons if he didn't save him. Like that, like the stakes were again higher. This kid dying doesn't result in anything other than a dead kid. It's a depressing way to think about it, but it's true.
Yeah, and it is pretty heartbreaking the way it ends.
Oh yeah, I mean, even before the ending, like the parents' reaction when they see he's okay.
Yeah.
And they just
basically call him a demon.
Yeah, they react horrified, like he's possessed, and he's like, "No, it's still me. I still feel fine. Like my spirit didn't escape." And they just don't believe him, and it's really quite sad. And actually, I was thinking about Star Trek a little bit here, and I know you love it when I'm the one who brings up Star Trek, but
you're wearing a Star Trek shirt.
I am wearing a Star Trek shirt today. But I was thinking about Star Trek because the episode I just watched was about first contact with the planet that ultimately decided it wasn't quite ready to join the intergalactic community. And I was thinking about that moment, that choice here, because it's almost like this is something that the Babylon 5 world needs, where this race, this alien race that's kind of new to the system in terms of like all the different like cultures intermingling, like maybe they're just not ready to intermingle with the other planets yet when their beliefs are this, I mean, from our perspective, kind of archaic. Maybe that's kind of the problem here, is that
yeah, I mean, there are other, if not all of the races on board at Babylon 5, they all are species, they all have a belief system.
They do, that's true.
So I don't know if it's fair to call it archaic since it's still around, but I mean, in my mind, yeah, definitely.
I think the reason why I'm going to archaic with this one in particular is because them yelling that their child is now a demon it makes me think of like people yelling that someone's a witch because they've got medicine and they think it's witchcraft. It makes me think of that, like that misunderstanding of just how things are. And even the debating about, like, because Sinclair at one point, who I think is, like, religious, he does have, he is Christian, I think. I think that was mentioned previously, and then...
maybe?
Or is it Franklin who's Christian? I can't remember who was brought up. It was
Franklin does a little prayer.
Yeah.
Before he cuts the boy open, he makes the comment of, if their gods are valid, then I guess mine are too, or something.
No, that was the same with Sinclair, because the prayer he gives for the kid is actually from the kid's culture. Like, he actually looked up and learned a little thing to say for the kid.
Oh, I thought that it was, like, I don't know, something from Earth.
No, that was one of theirs. It was the argument with Sinclair where it says, maybe there is no God, but if one is right, they're all right, because maybe God doesn't care like how you pray or like how you.
Which is why I thought he was just giving like
a
sweet baby Jesus, watch over this boy or something.
No, it was definitely weird. I'm sure it was like one of like this race's things that he said. But the ending's super dark because the parents, like, it seems like okay, and there's this moment where they say, because they've got the kid wearing this like special like white robe or something. I say, this is for the great journey, and I went
for traveling. It's a traveler's robe.
Oh, the great travel, the great travel. But I was like, wait, that sounds ominous. Like, this is not just going home.
Yeah, I kind of knew where it was going right away. Like, once you see them like call their boy a demon, like, okay, this is not. They're just gonna kill the kid.
Yeah, and it's this really sad thing where. And I think it works that you get it right away, because that like minute long scene where it builds up to like Franklin like noticing the research and like seeing that phrase in the text and be like, wait a minute, and just bolting to the room, which is not that far away relatively speaking. It's like a couple of hallways over.
It's like a closet too in the hallway. Like, is that where they were staying?
But he goes in and like the kid's on a bed, there's candles around him, and the parents say it's okay, he wasn't our son anymore. And again, this to him is just this like barbaric act that they've just committed.
But I mean, they really believed that his soul was gone and he was just a shell of a person, an egg, an empty egg.
and this is why you get this sad moment with Sinclair where they're sitting on the the sort of garden area, and he talks about his arrogance and talks about the mistakes he's made here. And when you stop and think about it, like all he really accomplished in this episode was, instead of letting the kid die with his parents loving him, he saved the kid so the kid could fear for his life, knowing he was going to be killed by his own parents. Like, you know, all he did was make this kid's last, like, half a day or whatever it was, like, the worst half a day it possibly could have been.
Right.
You know, this awful, awful thing. Because that's the thing.
And plus, he doesn't get to die thinking that he was going to go ascend someplace, you know, nice. It was instead he was going to die. And I don't know. I don't know if they have a hell. If they have a demon, I suppose they have hells.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Yeah, so it's like... Yeah, because early on, one of the things early on in the episode is that he gives him this little, what does he call it? It's a kind of egg, but it glows when
from the placebo planet.
Yeah, when he pets it. But it's actually just like a random bit of like stuff from the ship. It's nothing. And there's a little thing where Sinclair goes to see the kid, and the kid knows this, but he doesn't get that Franklin's intentionally lying to him to make him feel better. He's like, but don't tell Franklin it's not a real egg, because I think he still believes it. Like, you're almost smart, kid. Almost. You're almost very self-aware. But yeah, the episode ends with Franklin stroking the egg that's glowing up. As you know, the music here is quite good, I thought. But I think it makes him sort of reconsider like his actions and like how he thought he was in the right the whole time without ever considering the consequences of what would happen if he saved the kid. Like, because he never once stopped to consider, okay, what's going to happen if, you know, if I do go through with this and I've saved the kid's life, how are the parents going to react, and what is his life going to be like in their culture if they believe this so severely that they're willing to let him die? It never goes through his head, and he couldn't have predicted that this was going to be the outcome. It's
Right. I mean, even if the parents said, well, that's not my son anymore, and then the son gets raised like in, you know, by foster parents of some type, then at least he has a chance to grow up and have a life of his own with autonomy. But they don't even give him that chance.
No. Yeah, he could almost have the Worf like upbringing, just grow up in a different culture.
Yeah, Rozhenko's.
There you go. Is that his parents' names? His foster parents?
Mm-hmm.
Look at you with the weird Trek knowledge. Shouldn't be surprised, but yeah, I am, because that's particularly obscure. But okay.
I don't. I think it comes up enough.
Okay. Oh, I've only met them like once, I think, but I'm impressed. Either way, I'm impressed.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, super dark ending. I think it's not the perfect execution the whole time, but the hard questions that it's asking here, and essentially forcing, because I think human beings, regardless of, like, you know, if you are religious, if you aren't, if, you know, whatever culture you're kind of a part of, like, I think most cultures watching this on Earth inherently agree that there should be surgery. Most cultures on Earth are pretty okay with surgery. Not all, but most are. Sure. And I think the episode does a good job of kind of challenging us to realize that we can't be as arrogant as Franklin, even though we fundamentally agree, and we would say, no, we should save the kid. Why wouldn't we? This is ridiculous. It would be like us not like taking out someone's appendix, if that's all it took to like save someone, you know, like that's all that needs to happen.
Sure, but I mean, Babylon 5 is supposed to be a safe haven for all cultures, and if their cultures are under attack because of humans, then why would they ever choose to go there?
And maybe that's the other point, is like this is the price of peace, is the accepting that you can't sort of, you know, fix what you see wrong with someone else's culture. If that's ever going to happen, it's going to happen in time with them learning and getting there on their own terms. But
I appreciated the very small scenes that we got with like G'Kar and Londo in this. Also, I'm glad they put the makeup on just for this one, this like one 30-second moment. It was. I like that G'Kar had already like had people look up their planet and culture and see what they had to offer them before they even like arrived.
I mean, I think that little montage of them going through the 4 ambassadors was a really nice little, like, just sort of reminding us all of their characters, and like just reaffirming even like how each of them think, because it was a nice little quick
and
representation
also, like,
of each of them.
Look at how diverse our ship is, our station is. Then, like, this is important to the story we're telling.
Yeah, because it did that thing where, like, you know, like one like G'Kar's first, and the scene ends with them asking a question like, "Oh, have you no sympathy?" And it cuts to Londo and like his scene going, "I sympathize, I really do.
I sympathize for the right price."
Yeah. So yeah, so it neatly transitions from scene to scene, but Yes, I think the key phrase, not that we have key phrases from these reviews, but I think the key one has to be Koshi's very, very ominous, the avalanche has begun, but it's too late for the pebbles to vote.
Super ominous.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see, where these Kosh teases are building. But no, so it's a solid episode. I think the B plot feels a bit more disposable than it normally does.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair critique. But I like the tough questions. I liked it. Yeah, just to reiterate, my favorite thing about this episode is that it challenges me in a way that's, I think, interesting, because I'm inherently on Franklin's side, but it still does a good job of making me reconsider and go, no, there's reasons why I we have to respect these beliefs, even though they seem so silly to us. And I think that's impressive.
Yes, I agree.
Sitting here as two atheists, I think it's impressive.
I mean, I was on Sinclair's side by the end.
Yeah.
Even before the end.
No. So, good stuff. That is episode 10, Believers. So, we'll be back next time with episode 11's. So you can, of course, let us know what you thought of the episode of Babylon 5 in the comments below. By all means, point out little details we might have missed. It's always nice to see the little extra things.
But don't spoil anything.
Of course. But, if you happen to pause, say, when Garibaldi's looking at a newspaper about interspecies relations, and if there's any juicy details in there you want to tell us about, by all means, let us know. But yeah, you can do all that. Liking is really important on YouTube. It lets us know, of course, that you want to keep the content coming, but also it helps us out by allowing YouTube to pimp us out to more people on a regular basis, and therefore we'll find more people, and that's great. Where can they also support us, Tara?
Yes, if you enjoy the reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/mildfuzztv. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes for other shows we do here, including the ACE, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, which is our science fiction movie review show. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 1 week early. And you'll also get access to Star Trek and Twilight Zone 1 week early. So please do check that out. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. You can also catch us on Twitter at @mail_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.